Hi, my name's Cyndi Masters, and I'm an alcoholic. And because of the grace of God, some simple actions in this program and both sides of sponsorship, I've been sober every single day in a row since December the 17th, 1985. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. It's interesting. Tina had asked me to speak, and she said, "Will you talk on love?" She said, "I think about love when I think about you," and I thought there's probably no bigger compliment on earth than to be associated with love. And I do love you, Tina. There are a lot of people here today that I love. And I'm surprised at some of the people that are here, and I thank you. So when we get a topic that's not a step and it's not just your story, it's always challenging for, how am I going to share this in my recovery journey? So I looked it up, and, love is mentioned 53 times between the Big Book and the 12 and 12. And I think that we often talk about it as the love and tolerance that's in the 10th step that says that this is our code, which it is. Tina and I wrestled because we thought about calling it, we don't shoot our wounded, because that we love them instead. And I think one of the earlier speakers talked about letting God love us through that wound that we come in with. And I think the way that most of us, or at least the way that I have experienced that love from God, was from you first. And without you loving me and my woundedness and my madness, I never could have experienced God's love. I never could have been convinced it existed, particularly because when I got here, I was absolutely sure that God could not love me, that I was not lovable. And I don't think I was capable of love in either direction. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about, like my typical story, but I'll tell you enough to qualify. I've been drinking my whole life, and I drank for exactly what it talks about in the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous. I drank for the effect produced by alcohol. And I always say this because my truth has not changed. And, some people, they say, well, I drank and it made me taller, it made me prettier, it made me something, and it did absolutely none of that for me. What alcohol did for me was I felt like I was bleeding from the inside out. And when I drank, it cauterized it. So it became my solution. And, by the time that I got here, the first time I got here at 17, I had spent most of my adolescence, probably from the time I was 12 on, either in institutions or on the street. I've been in excess of a couple dozen institutions, foster homes, and the like. And I was angry, and I wasn't very palatable for human consumption. Because I was so angry, I had this very, very foul vocabulary, and I was not going to conform to anything, and I wanted to be loved, but I couldn't accept it. So if you got near me, I did this. I really thought I was far too broken for the steps. People in treatment would say, Cyndi, just work the steps. Your life can be different. And I thought, I wish that were true. I wish that were true. But you see, I'm broken. All those institutions I'd ever been in, I had labels assigned to me, and I adopted those, and those became old ideas. It took me 5 years of being around Alcoholics Anonymous to surrender. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm not sure why, but I think the big difference in defeat and surrender is when I got here the first time, I had 7 felonies. There was no doubt I was defeated. I'd never had hope. I'd never had a dream. I didn't go to high school. I didn't have nothing I was going to grow up and be. But I wasn't surrendered to the fact that drinking could never be different for me. I still really thought that all those bad things that happened in my life were part of what made me be crazy when I drank. So my last drunk on December the 16th, 1985. There was no bravado. There was no, threats of prison. There was no anything other than my drinking life had once again become normal, and it was pitiful and it was disgusting. And my last drunk, I came out of a blackout. And for those of you that are blackout drinkers, you'll relate to this. I can wake up in the middle of something and not know if I volunteered or not. I have to catch up to what's happening around me. And as a woman, it's terrifying because a lot of bad things have happened, and I've woke up in some really frightening places and frightening positions. So anytime I'm coming out of a blackout and I don't know where I am afraid. And so I'm crying. So this bad girl from the streets is now crying because I don't know where I am. And I've urinated on myself and I've vomited on myself. And because that's the kind of sexy that comes with my drinking. And the pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization was that I was sitting in front of where I lived. And for me, it doesn't get any worse than that. It's just sad and pitiful. And that's what I am when I drink. There's a lot of other things that happen that are consequences and that are bravado and that are whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm a pitiful alcoholic who can't tell you how much I'm going to drink once I put one in me. And I can't tell you where I'm going to go, and I can't tell you where it's going to take me, and I can't tell you how I'm going to treat you. I can't tell you I'm going to treat you not very well. And the next day I woke up and I was different. And this was in 1985. And the difference for me was a level of humility I'd not known. I had been very, very smart. I memorized the big book and I used it like a weapon. I would confront old timers, and I knew what it said, but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know how to put it on my life. I had no idea, what does it really mean, the words in it. I just used it because I need to be more to be enough. And so I used it to make myself feel better in Alcoholics Anonymous and to feel important. And it about killed me. And so the first thing my sponsor said was I was not allowed to quote the big book anymore. I could only talk about it as it applied to my life. And I got nothing to say. The humility was that I took the direction. I didn't understand the direction, which is really a lot of where the second step starts to come in. It's when I will have enough faith to take a direction that I have no prior knowledge will really work for me. And I think all of us do that when we come here and we first try the steps. It's a real leap of faith. Oh my. I did not behave in a lovable way in my early recovery. I was not capable. Those 5 years in and out, I did harm inside and outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. I treated Alcoholics Anonymous like I treated the streets because it's what I knew. And so I used you. I lived on your couches. I manipulated you to feed me because it's all I knew. And I didn't even know I was using you. That's the sad thing. Some people come here and they reclaim who they are. I didn't come here and reclaim who I was. I came here and I learned how to be. And you taught me that. And I am grateful. And you taught me that because I was this big gaping wound. And I really believe we don't shoot our wounded. All of us come here wounded. None of us come here because we're whole and well. And most of the time when we're wounded, and if you look at any wounded animal, they don't behave properly. It's quite impossible because we're totally acting out of our instincts and fear. And here's what you did. You loved me anyway. You loved me anyway. You said, keep coming back. And you didn't say, be different so you can come back. Now, one of the things I love that the big book says is that it is the great suffering and the great love. That is what we have here. That is where we connect, both in our suffering and in our love for each other, and particularly our love for the newcomer. I've met very few newcomers who are warm and fuzzy, and but I have never met a newcomer that's not lovable. So That's a kind of a weird distinction. You know, I think that what the steps do, some people, they come and they work the steps so they can open up enough to feel God's love and to attach to a power greater than themselves, which can solve their problems. And some of us, me included, come here and get loved enough by you that we can work the steps, that I don't have to be afraid of facing myself, my future, or who I've been or who I am. And some of us, that's a long process. And I'm a big step person. I'm a big book person. I usually have a big book study in my house. I'm a big believer in all of that. But at the end of the day, all of that is to introduce us to a power greater than ourselves, which can solve our problems. And the only way that that's described in the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous is a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. And so it is in our loving each other that we have the group conscience that allows each one of us to feel God and allows the newcomer to feel God and loved. You give me a topic like this, Tina, I'm just off and going, so I don't know where I'm going, but this is where I am. And, you know, I got here and I maintained an edge. I maintained a hardness, no matter how hard I worked in AA, that I could not discard. I was defended, and I worked very, very hard, but I couldn't make that last residual of street tough and street thing leave me. Only God can remove that. It became a shortcoming for me. And I did my best in AA, but still had that film between me and you. I could not really accept that you loved me. I believed that you tolerated me because you had to, because it was your code. But I did not believe that you loved me. I loved AA. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life, and it remains the best thing that has ever happened to me in my whole life. You know, when I was about 11 years sober, my grandma died. It broke my heart into a million pieces. My grandmother taught me about love. My grandmother, like, I did not have consistency in my life growing up. I had people that loved me. I couldn't see it for a long time. They did love me. They just couldn't be consistent. And so one day things could be good, and the next day I could be slammed across a room. But my grandmother, never was that the case. My grandmother was consistently loving and kind. She exampled what we have a code for. She exampled love and tolerance. She grew up in an era where people were prejudiced towards people because of the way they were born, the color they were born, the sexuality they were born with. My grandmother never uttered a negative word about a single person or group of people. She taught me that love's the answer, no matter what the question is. She went to church all the time. She told me, Cyndi, God loves you, period. Not if, not when, not but. She said, God loves you, period. And she exampled it because she loved me, period. In my 20s, I was sober, and I would go visit her, and she would wash my face at night before we went to bed, and I would snuggle up in bed with her. Now, I come from Jump Street, and I didn't do that, but with her, I was like a childlike. You know, she exposed the very best of me because she was so safe. She's the one that taught me that fear and faith always are inside of here. They always are. The question is, which one am I going to feed? There are a lot of scary things going on right now. A lot. You know, we were already living in some scary times, and recently there have been even scarier times. And if I have time, I'll talk about that and what's going on in Louisville towards the end of my talk. But she taught me that it's my choice in places like this. Which one am I going to pay attention to? Am I going to feed fear and tell myself why it's so scary and why things are so horrible, or am I going to feed faith? And am I going to try to rely on God? And for me, faith is love. And am I going to focus on how can I love you? Because the only way that I ever feel loved, ever, is loving you. That's what I love about the 11th step prayer, the prayer of St. Francis. It's like, it is our job to love, comfort, and understand. What I didn't understand, because to me, I didn't like that when I got here, because I felt like I was so empty and I needed somebody to love me. And what you guys are saying is our way is to love others. And I found that is how I feel love. I feel love when I love you. It's impossible not to. So my grandmother died and she was terrified. And I got very angry at God and I took a walk in the dark. I said, God, what do you want from me? It's like, how can you take this little lady that's served you her entire life and let her be terrified to come meet you? And I wanted nothing to do with God. And I took a walk in the dark sober. And I believe if we stay sober long enough, we all will. We all will. And hopefully we have trained our feet to keep doing the right thing, even when nothing feels right. I thought about killing myself. I went to meetings and I didn't want to. What I did right, because for me, my relationship with God is a partnership. God does not do for me while I just sit here. So what I did right was I went to meetings and I didn't go with my 11-year sober persona. I went to meetings and I told the truth. I can't feel God and I'm mad. It might not have made me popular, but it gave me room for grace. Then I was also willing to find God. If God would show up, I was okay with that. So in early recovery, I bought myself a Harley Davidson. It was a big Harley Davidson. It was a shovel head. For those of you that know, it has this like really great sound. Boom, 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 boom. And so anyway, they wanted me to meditate. And, I vibrated a lot and I smoked a ton. And so meditation was kind of out of the question, but you get me on that Harley and it would vibrate more to me and I could feel God in the wind. See, my Harley was my first meditation pool. God will meet me where I am. All I got to do is want to meet him. I didn't have to go to your building. I didn't have to go to your mountaintop. I just have to want to meet God and he will show up in the way that I need him to. I just have to go this far. So anyway, it was February 1998. I turned 12 years sober and, I'm still lost. I'm lost. I'm not behaving in a way that a sober person, I'm not behaving in a way that I would hold myself to now. I'm behaving way better than when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm still not, I'm sleeping around. I'm still doing this. People are still discardable a little bit. I can't totally attach. It's not inside of me to do that. And so it was February 1 and I got on my Harley and it's like I'm lost. And I'm on a highway doing 65 to 70 miles an hour, going with the flow. It's a Sunday. And the next thing I know, it's like people are doing the same. Somebody's coming in my lane. I can't drive out of it. And boom, I'm hit. And according to the police report, I was catapulted 17 foot in the air. And I rolled off. I landed on a car that was driving down the middle of the highway, plop. And then I rolled off that car and that car drove up me. And my face was shredded by the undercarriage of the car. I've had a couple dozen surgeries putting my face back together. My lungs were collapsed. My heart got shifted to the left, and it goes on. I'm laying on the highway. I do not know what happened to me. All that I know is that I can't breathe because that's what happens when your lungs are collapsed. You can't breathe. And I'm scared. I'm scared. Probably like my grandma was when she got ready to die, because we're afraid of change. We're afraid to change home groups. You know, we're afraid to change motorcycles, cars. Of course, we're afraid of the big adventure. And then I realized I couldn't keep myself from dying. And so I let go in the most absolute way that I've ever let go in my life. And what happened was amazing, because I got wrapped in God's arms. And all that I felt when I let go was love, 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 nothing but love. I think I got wrapped in the purest love possible. And I think I had to be laying in that highway, ripped from head to toe, to be able to experience it. And I would have the wreck today to get that experience again, because it changed my life. Now, I lived, but with a whole lot of things. I have a traumatic brain injury, which has been a wrestling match to learn how to handle that, to learn how to not react. I've had to create artificial filters in my brain so I'm not an idiot. You know, I can't say I'm not an idiot, but so that I don't always act like an idiot, you know, and I'm not an idiot, and I don't treat myself that way anymore. So I just correct myself with that right now. I had a incomplete spinal cord injury. Just a lot of things. They fast-tracked me. I got on Social Security disability. I was on food stamps. I lost what I had and what was going to become of me. Because see, I lost all the things that I thought gave me value, which is why I believe that they say that our reliance can't be on something outside of us, right? I lost my looks. I thought I was cute. Most of us do. I'm self-centered. I thought I was smarter than most people. I took a lot of pride in it. So I'm looking like this, and I can't remember your name 10 minutes after I meet you. I lost my ability to earn money, and I've always been able to naturally start businesses and make money. So I'm shredded of everything that I think might have given me value in a moment. Fortunately, I was integrated into Alcoholics Anonymous. And what you all did was you brought new people to my house. And you brought new people that were feeling good and sorry for themselves. And they come in the house, they take one look at me, and you'd say, tell Cyndi what you told us in the car on the way over. And take one look at me and say, nope. After a little coaxing, you finally say, well, Cyndi, oh, wow, my boyfriend left. I just don't know how I'm going to go on. I have a seizure. She would feel better. Now, I would not know what happened. All I know is people come to my house and they're feeling kind of sad. And they leave my house and they're feeling kind of happy. And I'm feeling just a little bit like Gandhi. Again, my relationship with God requires partnership. So what was my part? I let that be enough. See, I've been like a demanding child most of my life. And I want it my way, and I want it when I want it, and I want it the way I want it. And so it's like, no, God, spiritually, I want to sit on a mountaintop and have people come to me and listen, not have a seizure, but I let having a seizure be enough. And I let it help me feel better about myself. Because see, all my purpose in life comes from my ability to be able to connect with you, my ability to give. Never does my fulfillment in life come from what I get. Never, but that's what I always think. You know, if only this. I mean, you know, if only a new guitar, if only a new house, if only, then it'll be different. And no, I let that be enough. And when I feel good about myself and when I have a sense of purpose, I get better. That's why as newcomers, we make coffee, because we begin to feel a part of something and we begin to feel useful. And so the same thing worked. I turned 12 years sober and the same thing worked. As I began to feel a part of it and I began to feel useful, I began to get better. Now, nobody would hire me. I don't know why I look like this and I'm having seizures. But what they did do was I got a commission-only position and I started to get better. Now, in this 6-year period of time in recovery, a lot of things happen. Within 2 years, I got stage 3 breast cancer. And so I'm 34 when I have the wreck. I'm 36 years old. I got stage 3 breast cancer. And I'm young, and it's, you know, it's advanced. So I did almost a year with 3 different kinds of chemo and radiation. And I spent one day of that year like challenging God. Like, why? I've had this life that nobody should have had, man. You know, I grew up in a way that, you know, I should have been dead. I lived on the streets where nobody makes it out. I came out of institutions, state mental hospitals in the 70s where people were left to rot. You know, I have alcoholism. I had this motorcycle accident, killed anybody. And now I have cancer. And what I heard, and this is what recovery is, what I heard in return was, what do you want from me? And see, that's all recovery is. It takes this thing that I'm feeling very sorry for myself about. And then all of a sudden, it's like, look how lucky I am. I've been through all these things. And here I am. Here I am. God has made it possible for me to be here. 6 years, the wreck, I started to fall and I can't get up. When I was a kid, I got kicked through doors, my back got broke. And the accident, when I got drove over, it exacerbated that break, and my spine got pushed forward, and my spinal cord got stretched. So they had to go in and cut my spinal canal and protect everything so that I would have stability to walk. And the beautiful thing about this, see, here's the thing, and this is when we let love be in charge. Every bad thing that's ever happened to me that I have been through sober has had great meaning and has wound up with tremendous gifts. So the tremendous gift of that is that it triggered this slideshow of trauma from my childhood. And I'm sober at this time. When am I sober? 16, 17 years. And I have not been this tormented since I was a newcomer. All of that, just that open, gaping wound that truthfully only love can fill. And only love can fill that if I'm open enough that it can get in. Because see, when I stay closed, there's no way for it to penetrate because I have such thick armor. So thank God all these things happened, because it opened me up like a can opener. And in comes you, and in comes God, and my crazy sponsor who thought that it'd be a good idea to do forgiveness work around this stuff was not my idea of how to deal with this. But through that forgiveness work, I was able to put closure on that and become a free woman to the trauma of my childhood. Because all of these things are happening to me in a row sober. So the next thing that happened, all this in the 6-year period, was that I was in my, I was better. I started a business after cancer. And I was still a recipient of the Traumatic Brain Injury Trust Fund. So this lady, she's coming to my apartment, and I can't figure out how to pay my bills, so they're spread out all over the floor. Like, I know how to pay them, but I don't know what's due when or how to keep it organized. And imagine she's come to my house, and I say to her, I wish I could remember her name, but my brain was really fragile back then. And I said to her, guess what, lady? And she says, what? I said, I'm starting a business next week. Now you can imagine what went through her brain, right? But here's what she said. What kind of business, Cyndi? I said, a technology business. I don't know how she kept a straight face, but here's what she said. I don't know what she thought. What she said was, Cyndi, if you need help organizing there, let me know. I will help you. Now, she knew I had $1,700 to my name. I don't have enough organizational skill to pay my own bills. I've never, like the wreck, I've never sued anybody. I've never done any of those things. And well, it was a hit and runs. I don't know if I would have if they would have stayed around. but so I didn't get money. I didn't have any of those things. I have Social Security, disability, food stamps, and little bits I make on commission. And what she did for me is something that we forget to do for each other. She allowed me the opportunity to fail, and she encouraged my dream, not what she thought I could do. She encouraged my dream, because it is in the dream, not in the success, that the real juice is, right? And I've been saying this a lot lately, and only lately, but it's true. It's like, how often do we protect people from themselves and we don't know? How often do we try to keep people from chasing their dream because we think they're going to fail and we don't want them to hurt, especially people that we know how wounded they already are, and we don't want them to hurt more. And so in our good intention, we really block them from what may be God's intention for them, because that business does business multinationally today. I have a big business, and I have a big business that does business a lot of places. And I can't take any credit for it. I can't do a thing my business does. I didn't have any money when I started it. And somehow it's turned into this amazing thing. And after I started the business, that's when I had the back. And then I was, I was in my attic. I had a house. I was in my attic and trying to do a master bedroom, looking at a contractor with it. And I fell through the rafters and landed in the doorway below. And my C5 split in half. And I'm paralyzed from the chest down. I can only move like this. And that was kind of the grand finale of those 6 years, right? There are people in here in this room that have been through everything with me. And I love you, and I appreciate it. I almost gave up on that. I didn't want to be paralyzed, and my surgeon said he didn't know if I would be permanently paralyzed or not. And then after the surgery, and I never have time to talk about this, but I will, because I got time. I got the surgery and I started to get better. And then I got an infection in the neck and the wound. And they didn't know if they were going to have to take all the hardware out. That would have been protocol, but I would have left me maybe never walking and probably dying. And so we went in and he irrigated instead. And I was in the hospital for months. Now, obviously, I walk and I move, and how blessed am I? I'll tell you what happened, though. The wreck, my family came, my mom, for 1 week. I had doctor's appointments, care. I couldn't drive. I couldn't even remember how to get home if I could drive at the time. I was very confused. And you know who took care of me? Yeah, you did. You guys even gave me baths. I had bikers from Cincinnati that came and slept on my couch. You loved me. You loved me. And it was the first time I felt it, because I had nothing to give in my mind. There was nothing you could get from me. And here you were, making meals, and you did it after every one of these things. I didn't miss a meal, and I didn't miss an appointment. When I got out of the hospital with the neck, I still had to have an IV therapy. And you guys made the schedule, and people picked me up at 7 a.m. and took me to get my IV antibiotics. Sometimes you had brand new newcomers that were like 1 week sober, and I would think, I hope they show up. I hope they show up. And sometimes they wouldn't. And then this guy who I'm still friends with, who kind of coordinated it, his dad would step in, who's not even in recovery. And he would get me donuts and take me to get the IV thing. I think it took all of that for me to feel fully loved. I'm not saying that it should for most people, but I see all of those things as a gift, because through every one of those, you loved me unconditionally. You loved me, and I felt it. And people had loved me, but I had never felt it. And I felt wrapped in your love. And I am extremely grateful for that love. And I don't think I ever felt love until then. I really don't. I think I wanted to feel love. But I think I was so calloused because I was so wounded. And with wounds are scabs, and then come scars. And my scars went out this deep. And you guys had to just love them, love them, love them like sandpaper, sanding those damn things down so that you could be here. And you did. And you did. Now, I'll tell you, brain injury is ugly. And sober, behaving somewhat like people that aren't sober with a very fragile, broken brain has given me great opportunity for amends and recovery. I've worked super hard to heal this brain. And I've worked super hard to have artificial filters. But even now, if I get entirely too tired, I am likely to not be able to keep that filter in place because it's artificial. I've pushed myself as hard as a human being can push. I've done more than I should be able to do. And I've done it because of you. But in my push, I've hurt my brain too. A few years into this, I don't know when, I guess about 5 years ago, I started having what they thought were strokes. And I wound up in the stroke ICU at University of Louisville after I was in two other stroke ICUs. And because of the neck and the brain, apparently it creates a symphony. And when it gets overtaxed, I literally get diagnosed with the stroke. My vessels constrict, and I got very depressed when I thought I was having strokes. I'm not having strokes. They can be a stroke if I don't care for myself, because I have something called reversible vascular constriction syndrome. That's why it gets diagnosed as a stroke. It looks like one on a CT scan. And I get what's called hemiplegic migraines. And my neurologist said that is very simply because I would not pay attention and sit down when I had migraines. And instead I push. And so part of recovery and part of letting God love me and letting you love me is learning how to sit still and just be. Just be. Just be. COVID's been so good for me because I have to sit and just be. And sitting still is hard for us drunks. Not having power, not having control, not having the distractions of our life. So I've taken up Native American flute, and I have all these guitars in this room. I've started playing guitar again. And my businesses, they're going. Because I don't know why and I don't know how. What I do know is I've been broke sober, and I've been perfectly happy broke. Maybe the happiest ever. After my wreck, I think I was the happiest ever because it was the first time that I felt so loved. And things and businesses and houses become bondage. They become bondage because with each one of those becomes things you have to do to care for them. I sponsor a fair amount of women. There are a couple here. I think my sponsor might be here somewhere. Her name is Snow. And it's, when I first asked Snow to be my sponsor, I've been sober a while. I've known Snow 20 years, and I had a sponsor who had aged a little and I was no longer really using. I said, but I'm still sponsoring people. She says to me, she says, well, Cyndi, you know what happens when you just have a pipe that's leading in, you don't have a pipe taking stuff out? No. She said, you become a cesspool. And that's the truth. If I only sponsor or I only have a sponsor, either way, that pipe is coming in and it's sitting. I need both pipes so that there's a thoroughfare of love. My sponsor loves me and she votes for me. And part of how that looks sometimes is she's hard on me. Part of how that looks for me sometimes is she says, what are you thinking? It's your job to get in there and do this. She never mean to me. but she also doesn't give me a pass. She doesn't pat me on the poo-poo when I'm not stepping up in the ways I need to. And most often that happens with my business because I get overwhelmed. And most of the time I'm over my head and I want somebody else to do it. And I'm less than my best self there. It's been my last frontier for becoming better. It's been my last frontier for learning how to practice these principles every single place I am. And learning how to have love and tolerance, and learning that my job is to really love them too, my employees. It's to love them. It's not to get the most I can out of them. It's not. It's a great place now. It's a great culture, but it wasn't for a long time. And sometimes I get afraid, and my sponsor will say, Cyndi, do you think God's going to run out of money? It's one of my best things. I hear it in the back of my head. No, God's not going to run out of money. And she'll say, honey, God's taking care of you. Look back. And I need that reminder. I need somebody that reminds me. And then I have women here that I sponsor. And I get to remind you, how lucky am I? And I get to love you. And there's nothing I'm more grateful for than my ability to love. Take everything else. Let me be sober, let me love you, and let me feel love from you. 3 most valuable things in my life. I know what matters. You know, I have 2 brothers. They've been in and out of this program longer than I've been sober. And one of them was murdered in 2010. And it was kind of like there's always gifts, right? And the gift was I learned how much I do love. When I was early in recovery, my cousin died. I look at her in a casket and I feel 0. I'm like her favorite. She's my favorite. Her husband grabbed me. I felt nothing. When my brother died, I felt everything. Because you gave me my full library of feelings back. And love is not always the squishy. It's not. It's not. Love sometimes is sitting down and saying, baby, I'm going to tell you the truth, because if I don't, and you're hanging in a jail cell getting ready to hang yourself, I want you to know that you've really not done this deal. I don't want you to be there and think, I've done everything, even AA. I want you to know you haven't. I want you to know there's something left to try. See, that's love. That's love. Sometimes it's wrapping my arms around you and just loving you. Sometimes it's listening. If I will practice my 11th step, bookends of my day, and staying aligned with God, God will always give me the intuitive thought to love in the way that I'm supposed to for that day. I really do believe love's the answer, regardless of the question. You know, my other brother, first time he came to Louisville 20 years ago, they were shooting through a taxi at him. And I brought him back, and we've been on this road a long time. And last year I took him halfway house a couple times, and he called me. He said, Cyndi, I'm really trying. He said, I'm broken. I can't not do it. And then about a month later, he called me. He said, Cyndi, I can't live like this anymore, which are magic words for us. He said, I'm taking baths in the park and just can't do it. And I told him before I'd get him out of state if he ever needed to go, but he was on parole and he couldn't go. But see, because I have this family of sponsees and whatnot, a gal I sponsored worked on the other side of the state, and she got him into treatment right away. It's kind of like jail treatment, but for him, I think it's been helpful. And he's got 9 months. I talked to him this morning, and I was telling him and my point with that is, my job in his life is not to judge him, not to judge his in and outness, not to judge his ability to get sober, nor my brother that was murdered. My job is to be their sister and to love them for fun and for free, completely and unconditionally. I do not know what anybody else's journey is. Just because I wish it for them doesn't mean it's the one they're supposed to have. Just because I want a different journey and a different result in their life does not mean it's what they're supposed to have. And I think loving people is about me taking my hands off of that and just loving you and letting God do his job. That's a hard exercise. I heard from him this morning, and he says, I'm going to be home and I'm going to help you. My siblings call me mama sister. My sister writes me Mother's Day card for Mother's Day. She wouldn't let me near her children when I got sober. It was the amends process that healed that. She wouldn't let me near them because I abandoned her because I couldn't stay. And we worked through that, and it was so beautiful. See, her husband's dying right now. He is terminally ill with multiple myeloma. And my sister's not an alcoholic. And she says, Cyndi, there's nothing that feels better than you wrapping your big old arms, even if it's just one of them around me. I feel so loved, and saying, kiddo, it's going to be all right. I call her kiddo. And what an honor. What an honor. You gave me the ability to love her. You gave me the ability to show up and not have to fix it. You gave me the ability to just love you. And because of that, what an amazing journey I get to have. Try to get current. So we got all these crazy riots going on here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I own businesses, and I have a business in a building that's on 4th Street, right where the biggest bulk of all the rioting and burning and damaging was happening. And I turned on the news last night. I want to back up a minute before I get, I turned on the news last night, and I'm seeing my street where my business is, and I'm watching fires and banging windows and going in and looting. And I got afraid, and my first instinct is I'm going down there and I'm taking a gun and I'm going to sit in there and protect my stuff. Because that's my instinct gone awry. It's what I know, protect, save, block. And my next thought is, no, I'm not. Those are things. Who cares? Those are people, and I'm a person. Now, I personally believe people came from out of state. We've had peaceful protests for a week. Someone got shot while sleeping by the police, and I don't have a judgment on that. I'm just saying that emotion is high here, and that everybody has a right to their voice. Nobody has a right to hurt other people. I was grateful that my next to instant response could be just sit back and just love people and be a harmonizer, not a divider. Don't feed the fuel. Don't feed, this is horrible, what's terrible. Don't do that for me. I'm talking about my self-conversation. Love. That's my job. Love and tolerance. Tolerance is of the intolerable. Tolerance is not of the things that bother me, annoy me, irritate me. Look up tolerance. It's of the intolerable. People lighting my building on fire feels intolerable. That's why I have to practice that. I don't have to practice it because you get on my nerves. I have to love you if you get on my nerves. I have to tolerate you when you have intolerable behavior. And what an exercise is that? I'm going to tell you something. When my brother was murdered, people came to me. People wanted me to go to that corner where he was murdered. Because I come from a rough place, and I come from rough people that like to, anyway. I'll tell you what my response was. And this is so cool. I said, it was People's Corner for those of you in Cincinnati, and the sheriff came out and said any white guy in that neighborhood in a nice vehicle had a target on his back. It made me very angry. And I told him, I said, look, how wounded do you think that guy is that killed my brother? What kind of dream or hope you think anybody in that neighborhood comes up with? None. What do they know? That's what you know. When I got here, I used you because it's what I know. I had to learn. I had to have an example. Lucky me, I'm an alcoholic. You did that for me. I'm not mad at the guy that killed my brother. It doesn't mean I don't miss my brother. I wish it didn't happen with all my heart. But what my prayer was, and I said it out loud and I said it to everybody I talked to, I said, I pray that this neighborhood can become something different so the little kids here now can see something different, and that's not their solution to life. So I was back there a few months ago and my friend Mary Ann took me to dinner in that neighborhood. And guess what? It's been gentrified, half of it. It's become not gentrified as much as melded. And I can walk freely there. And the little kids that live there get to see different things and different opportunities. My prayer was answered not in the way that I hoped it would be, which is not usually the way that it goes. So this looting and all of these kinds of things, if we believe here that we come here wounded and that we don't shoot our wounded, then we love them, and then we practice these principles in all of our affairs. If we really practice these principles in all of our affairs, how can we not love them all? How can I not love the guy that murdered my brother? I don't like his behavior. I don't like what he took from me. I don't hate him. I don't even think, it doesn't matter what I think. And I don't know where I'm going with this. Tina gave me this crazy topic and here I go. What I know is no matter what the circumstance, and that's not just the circumstance here, and that's not just the people here whose behavior I don't like. No matter what the circumstance, love's the answer. And love and tolerance has to be my code because that's what my book says. And if I will practice the bookends of my day with meditation and prayer in the morning and inventory at night, I will get to behave that way between them. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for loving me. And I love you, period.
Wow, Cyndi, you are amazing.
Wow. Fabulous. Wow. Thank
Absolutely
you.
amazing.
Amazing message. Thank you so much.
Thank you.